Welcome back, sixth graders. Miss Hall here, and I'm glad to have you with us. As we continue our research journey together, I want us to be sure that we're still practicing supporting details within the text. So our I can statement is, I can cite textual evidence to support the central idea in informational text. Let's talk a little bit about some items you'll need for today's lesson. It's preferred that you have a hard copy or electronic version of today's article. You'll notice that it's going to sound similar to what we read before because it is. We're going to read Understanding the Lakes on Saturn's Moon Titan. Next, have a pen or a pencil, and because we're fancy, that highlighter handy as well. And as always, I highly recommend that you have your ELA notebook with you so you can keep those organized notes. So we're going to practice together with a couple of examples using fictional text, and that's fine because this skill works with nonfiction and fictional text. Again, we're going to practice this skill as the year goes on, all day, every day, so get used to it. So let's take a look. I want us to highlight the best evidence to support the statement that the fox cares about the boy. Let's read together. His boy would throw the toy and he would track it down, a feat the boy always seemed to find remarkable. He would retrieve the toy and wait with it in his mouth until the boy found him and took it back to toss again. And sure enough, the boy held the toy soldier aloft and then hurled it into the woods. Whatever his boy needed, protection, distraction, affection, he would have offered. Instead, he set off after the toy, finding it was slightly more difficult than usual, as there were so many other fresher odors in the woods. Let's take a look at our task for this excerpt. We were to highlight the best evidence to support the statement that the fox cares about the boy. Here's what I'm highlighting. Whatever his boy needed, protection, distraction, affection, he would have offered. Again, evidence that the fox cares about the boy. How do we do with this one? Perfect. Let's try another example. Here, as we're reading, I want us to look for evidence to support the statement that Jess regularly runs barefoot. Let's read together. His dad had the pickup going. He could get up now. Jess slid out of the bed into his overalls. He didn't worry about a shirt because once he began running, he would be hot as popping grease, even if the morning air was chill. Or shoes because the bottom of his feet were by now as tough as his worn-out sneakers. Where are you going, Jess? Maybelle lifted herself up sleepily from the double bed where she and Joyce Ann slept. So our task is to highlight the best evidence to support the statement that Jess regularly runs barefoot. Here's what I selected. Or shoes because the bottom of his feet were by now as tough as his worn out sneakers. How do we feel with this one? Now we're going to practice using or looking for supporting evidence using our article for today. So let's talk a little bit about our article. It's titled Understanding the Lakes on Saturn's Moon Titan. It's divided into 3 sections or headers. The first one was Titan's methane-filled northern seas, eastern and western side characteristics, and disappearing lakes. So at this time, pause the video so you can read this text for yourself, and that is Understanding the Lakes on Saturn's Moon Titan, and be sure to add your notes addressing this question. Now that you've read the text and also taken your notes to address our question, let's talk a little bit about it together. So our question today was, how effective is the introduction paragraphs, and that's paragraphs 1 through 3, in introducing the findings of the Cassini spacecraft? Now let's read together. Between 2004 and 2017, the Cassini spacecraft studied the planet Saturn and its moons. NASA worked together with other space agencies on this mission. In 2017, Cassini passed Saturn's largest moon, Titan. It used radar to gather data about Titan's lakes. Radar is a detection system that sends out radio waves and collects return signals. Cassini found information about the landscape, depth, and makeup of Titan's lakes. In 2019, scientists published their findings in a scientific journal called Nature Astronomy. Their findings confirm that some of Titan's lakes are very deep. They are about 100 meters or 328 feet deep, or as deep as the length of a football field. They are also filled with liquid methane. So our question was, how effective is the introduction, which included paragraphs 1 through 3, in introducing the findings of the Cassini spacecraft? I found it to be effective because it describes how Cassini gathered information and states the main points of the journal article. So there's a couple pieces of evidence that supports my statement here. Look at our first paragraph. It provides us dates of when this study took place, which was between 2004 and 2017. Now, if you take a look, it also mentioned how NASA works with other space agencies on this mission. Do you see anything in paragraphs 2 and 3 that supports our statement? Here's what I found. In paragraph 2, it introduces a type of technology used to collect data, which was radar. Let's look at paragraph 3. Not only did they collect this data using the Cassini spacecraft and other agencies, but it talks about publishing that information in a scientific journal called Nature Astronomy. How do we do with that one? Let's practice some more. Now here, we're going to read this selection together, and then we're going to address this question. Does the below statement summarize the paragraph? And that statement is, the hydrologic cycle on Titan is similar to Earth's, but on cold Titan, liquid methane and ethane move through the cycle. Let's read together. On Earth, ocean water evaporates or turns to vapor, forming clouds and rain. Titan does it all with methane and ethane. These are hydrocarbons or chemicals that contain only carbon and hydrogen. We tend to think of these hydrocarbons as gas on Earth. However, Titan is so cold that these hydrocarbons behave as liquids there. So let's look at our statement here. The hydrologic cycle on Titan is similar to Earth's, but on cold Titan, liquid methane and ethane move through the cycle. Does this summarize our paragraph here? It does. It does. Now keep in mind, when we're making summaries, we're not restating everything that was mentioned in that excerpt or that paragraph, but a gist, which is a brief statement, 1 or 2 sentences at max. So I wanted us to practice with the summary because the next few excerpts, we're focusing on citing supporting evidence. Let's get into it. The question states, what does this section explain that other sections do not? Now for me, sometimes I have to look at the question and make it make sense to me. So the question is asking, what is found here that you don't see anywhere else in this article that we read together? Does that make sense? We'll piece it out together. So let's read. Disappearing lakes. Scientists also study other types of lakes on Titan. In these lakes, the liquid levels change over time. Planetary scientist Shannon McKenzie said that as the seasons changed, liquid in the lakes must have evaporated. The liquid also must have entered in the layer below Titan's surface. These findings support the idea that hydrocarbon rain feeds the lakes. The liquid then evaporates back into the atmosphere, and it also drains into the layer below Titan's surface. This means that liquid could also be stored beneath the surface. So let's take a look at our question again. What does this section explain that other sections do not? Now keep in mind, we're focusing our attention on here, and the heading says disappearing lakes. So that tells me that this section is focusing on the characteristics of the lakes on Titan. So here's my statement. This section discusses the changing levels of transient lakes. Let's find some evidence to support my statement here. In our very first sentence, it talks about the other types of lakes on Titan. However, when we go into paragraphs 2 and 3 of this section, it provides us more specific details about the lakes on Titan. Let's see what we find here. Now, keep in mind, one of our important notes that we took down earlier is anytime an expert is mentioned, it's probably a good rule of thumb to highlight that as additional supporting evidence that can be verified. So here, Shannon McKenzie is our expert, and she states that as the seasons change, liquid in the lakes must have evaporated. The liquid also must have entered in the layer below Titan's surface, another characteristic of lakes on Titan. Do you see anything specific in paragraph 3 that will support my statement? Here it mainly talks about the hydrocarbon rain that feeds the lake. And also it mentions what happens to that liquid. It drains into a layer below Titan's surface. Now keep in mind, as we're looking for supporting details or supporting evidence, we want to stick to no more than 2 to 3 sentences within that section. Now let's wrap everything up in this nice, concise package together. Now we've worked with this thinking map in previous lessons, but let's break it down just a bit so that we understand what we're trying to accomplish in today's lesson. Now our learning focus was supporting details, which supports the central idea of the text. So we've looked at supporting details. Now we need to determine what was the central idea of what we read today. Now let's take a look at our first section here. Now I have our sentence starter that says the text by is mostly about, describes, discusses, or explains. We don't have to do all of that to make our objective summary, but this is just to give you a roundabout idea of how to structure your summary. Here's what I included. The article, Understanding the Lakes on Saturn's Moon, Titan, discusses some characteristics of the lakes found on this moon. Let's take a look at our central idea. This is the big one here. I really want to see, were you able to identify the primary central idea within our article for today? Here's what I come up with. Scientists are still researching these characteristics to better understand Saturn and its moon, Titan. Did you come up with something very similar? Again, this is a skill we're going to continue to work on throughout the school year, so don't get frustrated. We're in this together. Now, keep in mind, this is a reminder about our research process. We're still very fresh into this process, so if you're still considering different topics, that's fine. I want us to think about it's more than just planets that we're researching for the space unit. So consider space technology. One space technology that I used with my students was the Hubble spacecraft. We love saying that word Hubble. We even brought Hubble bubble gum in class that day just so they could remember it as we kept going. And that was groundbreaking technology back in the day. Moons. There's more than one moon in this galaxy, so consider maybe Titan as your research topic. Last but not least, space exploration. It's changed leaps and bounds over the years. So we have a lot that we can choose from. If you're still not sure or you need to narrow down your focus, as always, touch base with your teacher or your media specialist, and they may be able to help you find some better topic choices for you. Before we go, as always, you know we have to read. So get that 30 minutes in, whether you're reading a book of your choice or you want to continue reading for your research purposes. Consider reading a book not just for fun, but also to learn something new. Consider using that thinking map that we use today as a sentence starter when you're sharing with your teacher or media specialist the great things you're finding as you're discovering these great books right now. It's great researching with you and finding supporting details for our central idea today. I look forward to learning more things with you as we continue this process together. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. See you next time.